Good evening. I am going to call to order the Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission meeting for Monday, January 3rd, 2022. And at this time, I'll record the attendance of all members here, and we will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And with that, I would look for a motion to approve the current agenda.
So moved. Support.
Thank you, Member Nordike and Member Rappin for the support. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Moving to Article 4. Does anyone have a conflict of interest they wish to disclose this evening? Hearing none, I will move forward to Article 5. Article 5 is to approve the minutes of the December 6th, 2021 meeting. I read. Thank you. Member Nordike and Member Deering for the support. Any discussion? No? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Article 6, approve the minutes of the December 14, 2021 special meeting.
So moved. Support.
Member Nordike, Member Rappin with the support. Discussion?
I think I've got, there's one minor typo.
Oh,
We're talking about the second set of minutes, right?
yep, that is correct.
Okay, so it would be on page 8.
Page 8.
About halfway down, it starts with Corsange. And it says, asked it, they were referencing questions. It should probably be there.
Ah, yes. Member Nordike and Member Rappin, would you go along with that correction?
I'll amend my motion to change it to if.
Oh,
Did I do that right?
what if I read it wrong? I did, I read my own notes wrong. If, yep.
Okay. Member Rappin, you support that
Yes.
still? Okay, that was a close one. I
Good catch.
wasn't sure.
Sorry.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right. We are moving right along. And that brings us to Article 7, which is to acknowledge those present who wish to make comments, which need to be limited to 5 minutes. If you wish to speak on any matter this evening. And of course, there is a huge audience here tonight, but I'm mainly concerned with the people that would be connecting via Zoom. And okay, if that person wishes to speak, they may press *9 if I'm not mistaken, and raise their hand electronically or raise their hand electronically, and we will connect with them. And if they don't wish to speak, they can just remain silent and anonymous for the moment. Thank you. Okay, we will move right along to Article 8, which is the election of officers. So, having done this a number of times, we have rules on the Planning Commission that our officers can serve 2 years in an official position. And as such, I can, or 2 consecutive years, I should say. So as such, I have been chairman of the Planning Commission for 2 consecutive years. So I may not continue as chairman at this time. I have to take a year off. In theory, I could return down the road. Normally, I shouldn't say normally, I should say many times, the vice chairman will step up to the chairman role. The secretary would step into the vice chairman role. And I'm not trying to point at anyone here to do anything specific, but we're in a little bit of a unique situation this time around because the chairman, myself, has been here for 2 years, but both the secretary and the vice chairman have only been here for part of a year. So because they both assumed their office when someone else vacated it. So with that said, and then we also have the Village Design Committee Board?
Yep, Village Design Review Committee.
Review Committee, thank you. And then we have an individual who we put on the ZBA. Am I missing one?
That's all of them.
That's all of them? Okay. So those are the 5 positions that we need to fill. To my knowledge, there's no term limits on the Village Design Review Board, which I don't know has ever really met more than
they've met
a handful of times.
Not since I've been here. I don't believe they've
Yeah,
met.
I think Lisa was on it at one time and said that it hadn't met. I forget who was on it before that, but they said the same thing. I think they had one meeting maybe. And then our member Moxley here is currently serving as our person on the ZBA. And I think, so I think he's been doing a pretty good job over there. I know he's chaired some meetings, and I think he could probably step into, he would have my vote to step into an officer position here if he so desired. Member Merlin, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. What is the Village Design Committee's charter?
I don't know. I'm not on it.
But we appoint someone to
We
it?
do. I know that was kind of a stupid answer, but unfortunately, I don't know. At one time it was explained to us
Honest.
by Steve, and
All of the members of it? Or
just
one
we
member.
put one person on it. And who is the current?
It was
Lisa.
Lisa, and I honestly I'd have to check my notes to see if that ended up being filled. I know we filled our officer.
I would have thought I would have caught that because it was Lisa. I would assume then maybe
Lisa who?
Kreider.
Kreider.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
there's a
So
Kreider.
I don't know who took that spot, but
Maybe still open, possibly. And
I would be
the
surprised
Review
if
committee
we-
hasn't met since then, so.
no, I would be surprised if we overlooked that. But I mean, anything's possible. So long story short, we have to figure out our positions. And, I've had conversations with our vice chairman, and I think he's ready to step up into that role. And I think really the reality is that anybody on this committee, I think, is very capable to sit in this chair at any time. The one person that we can't nominate is he's already got his hand up with a big smile of relief. Trustee Nordhook. So he's not able to serve in any of the official officer positions. Yes, Mr. Merlin.
Can I make a motion then?
Well, I guess you can. Anybody can make a motion.
I move that Chris be made chair and Ralph be made vice chair because he is one of the longer tenured members of the commission. And that Deidre remain as secretary because she just took that position at this point. And then could move up next year, but
Are you okay with that? You're being put in the spot.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. All right.
Same.
Good. Same.
Member Merlin?
is Deidre fine with it?
I am.
I would support since all three.
Okay. So we have a motion by member Merlin and support by member Rappin for member Nordyke to be chairman and member Moxley to be vice chairman and member Deering to remain as secretary. Discussion. I think they'll do a great job.
I think it'll be a great board.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Great. Okay. Then that leaves us with the Village Design Board. I think we need a official motion.
Make a motion that member Rissy be our member design board. I feel like this is, as our chair emeritus, I feel like this is a position that the chair should go to after serving,
Oh my goodness.
given the commitment that
I
one has to
second
the
the
other.
motion.
Yeah.
I think
Is anybody watching on Zoom right now? Because I probably shouldn't make a comment. I know it's being recorded.
The commitment and the time this is going to require of you, but
Yes.
I feel like
It
you're up
sounds
for
like it's a big time commitment, but all right, I would hate to deny the opportunities. So if somebody, I'm
Somebody
not
gonna
gonna,
second
I'm
it?
not gonna second it though.
Craig did. All
Yes.
right.
I second.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so there's been a motion by member, a creative motion by member Nordike, supported by member Merlin to put myself, Chairman Rissy, on the Village Design Review Board that I don't think has ever met in the time I've been here.
You're welcome is the word you're looking for.
Oh, yes. Yeah. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Probably should have voted against that one in retrospect. Okay, and then the next item is the member on the ZBA, which I have longed for many moons, but I know that I believe Mr. Moxley wishes to continue on the ZBA. Is that correct?
Yes, they've got me as vice chair now, and I've had to serve as chair probably 3 or 4 times already.
Okay,
You can do both jobs under our bylaws.
doesn't say he can't.
I say it doesn't preclude you.
Let's have it.
I had that conversation with Steve Peterson at one time, long time ago. Okay,
And I make a motion that Mr. Moxley be our representatives on the ZBA.
Support.
all right, we have a motion by member Merlin with support by member Deering for member Moxley to be our representative, to continue as our representative on the Zoning Board of Appeals. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, I believe we have completed the election of officers, if I'm not mistaken. Is that how? Okay, I'm getting the nod from staff that we've done this correctly. So we will move on to the 2021 Planning Commission report, which is Article 9. And in the past, we have received the Community Development report. And member Merlin pointed out earlier this year that it is the responsibility of the Planning Commission, the chairman, incidentally, to have a report at the end of the year for everyone. So I put together a brief 1-page summary because I'm not an attorney.
That wasn't written for you.
No, this is not written.
Oh, I
for me.
thought for sure. it was
I
written for you. It was so
drafted
well
it.
written.
Oh,
I thought it was written for
Thank
you.
you, boy.
Regretting things right now, aren't you?
Is this like pick on Scott Day?
I thought it was well written. It's a compliment.
Thank you.
And it's a
Thank
slight
you for the
all in
compliment.
one, yeah.
Thank you. Just wait till you're sitting here. Okay, so I don't know if you guys wanted me to read this out loud for the record, or I probably should just do that. Is that, or do I need to?
No.
No, you have it. You received it. Staff has received it. Does anybody have any questions or disagreements or anything?
If the member or if the person viewing by Zoom would like, because this wasn't in the packet, was it?
It wasn't in the packet. It's very brief. So, well,
If that person.
I guess
like
then
to-
it would be in the video, the YouTube video too. I could read it real quick if you'd like for that.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Okay. December 31st, 2021, Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission year-end report. It was a busy and productive year at the Planning Commission. We saw many changes, including members and staff. Together, we learned a lot about various process and became more familiar with what the role of an active planning commission looks like. Below is a snapshot of highlights from this year. We started the year virtually via Zoom. We reviewed the Township Capital Improvement Plan. We discussed and approved a zoning amendment for temporary outdoor uses. We discussed the Kent County I should say Road Commission 5-year plan. Typo on my part. We created a committee to review the processes and actions at the Round Hill PUD. The committee met 8 times over a 6-month period. It then presented concerns to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission then worked to submit a comprehensive report to the Township Board with recommendations of processes that need updating. By implementing changes to improve process, Cascade Township will ensure that future developments are managed and built to the standards the Planning Commission, Township Board, and its residents expect. These changes should also improve the communication for residents and clarify who is responsible when a problem or concern arises. The old Cascade Motel and Pizza site was approved for a car wash and coffee shop. We changed our meeting rules to allow public comment on any matter as opposed to the old process of only accepting comments on items not on the agenda. We also asked for conflicts to be disclosed now at the start of the meeting as opposed to when the article arises. Both of these changes are clearly shown on all agendas now. This summer, we had what could be the longest planning commission meeting ever. This planning commission certainly should get a pat on the back for hard work and many long meetings. We clearly have a dedicated group of citizens. We discussed our rules of conduct and created some draft bylaws. Both of these items will likely carry over into 2022. By my count, we had 17 public hearings, 13 special uses, 4 PUD recommendations or amendments, 5 site plan reviews, 17 meetings, one of which was a special meeting. It has been my pleasure to serve with all of you. I have enjoyed the past 2 years as chairman of the Planning Commission, and I appreciate all of you, your time, support, and contributions. Respectfully submitted, Scott Rissy, chairman. Yes, member Merlin.
Just a couple of things. Maybe we don't want to have the word contributions at the end, in the sense that.
Okay. Well, I meant.
You've been non-monetary.
Right. Well, by contributions, I meant your contributions of time, your contributions of intellect.
So you could put that, your contributions of time and talent, but.
Okay.
Not treasure.
But.
Treasure.
Let the minutes reflect that.
And then the other 2 changes, I would say in the second line of the second paragraph about various processes, as plural, instead of various process. And the same in the 4th line of the long paragraph in the middle. Implementing changes to improve processes. Cascade Township will ensure that future developments are managed and built to standards the Planning Commission, Township Board, and the residents expect.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 other comments that I would make, unless someone else has one they want to raise before I continue on. The last 2 I want to make. One is whether we want to put in any reference to, we believe there is a need to increase oversight and enforcement of development. It always had been left to, it's on the honor system. You know, when we talked about there's no one who enforces our zoning ordinance.
Right. Are you referring to this being part of the report?
Yeah, this is part of the Round Hill report.
Well, this is not the Round Hill report. This is just my year-end report, and I didn't want to get that descriptive.
That's fine. And the second one, we also had at least one meeting where we discussed our role in the strategic planning process of the township.
We did talk about that. You're right. Yeah, I don't think I referenced that, but I mean,
and since that goes to what is the first job under our zoning ordinance of the Planning Commission, where it talks about comprehensive plan, and comprehensive plan is defined to include strategic plans and master plans in our zoning ordinance. I think it at least deserves a sentence.
Okay. Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, Scott, I just want to thank you for your leadership the last 2 years. It's really been very well done, and I want to thank you for what you've done.
Oh, thank you. It's all of you that made it possible.
Now, by the way,
yes.
Should Chris now be in your chair?
No, he starts the next meeting. No, we don't switch chairs once the meeting started. I think it's boat club. They actually passed the gavel, but we don't do that here. Okay. Let's see. Where am I at then? So with that, I guess we can move on to rules of conduct. Is everybody good with that? I actually did include a second document real quick, which I think you all saw is just kind of some opinions on things that was in the email, but I don't think we need to discuss it much. I just wanted to give it. Yeah, just different things that I think are important, because I thought that we had talked prior and I had mentioned that I would put something together to pass along, because I feel that sometimes people don't get all of the hints that they might want when they get on the planning commission. So having some extra hints thrown their way may be helpful, especially if you end up in this chair. So
I think it's a good tradition. In all seriousness.
Well, that's what I was trying to do. You know, I suppose I could have wrote a handwritten letter and left it for you.
No, this is sufficient.
Okay. All right, then moving right along, I believe we're talking about rules of conduct. Let's see here. I think I had, no, that's not it. Rules of conduct. Okay. Brian, usually Steve takes over at this point.
Yeah. These next few items here, the rules of conduct, planning principles, and 2022 calendar, we usually just try to include at the first meeting of the year, most often just as reminders here to guide us through the year. One of the bigger things about rules of conduct, again, is the ex parte communications. And then Scott asked me to include that article there from MSU Extension discussing that. It's basically that any discourse, about a case should happen in the public sphere here at meetings.
Yes, and that was brought to us from the attorney.
Yep.
The MSU piece, that's where that came from. Just give credit where credit is due. Member Merlin, I see you have your hand up.
Yes. And this goes to items 2 and 3, and it goes to the question of a conflict of interest.
What 2 and 3? Sorry, I just need to know what you mean.
I think under
rules of conduct.
The rules of conduct, item 2 and 3. First is just a typographical change. I think on item C of 2, it should say if the planning commission member is a close friend. And then the 2 other comments.
No, it's interesting because it reads member on all of the other ones except that one. On A, B, and D, it says planning commission member, but on that one, it says if the planning commission is a close friend of the applicant or parties involved.
But it's clearly just a typographical error. The other thing that I think we need to address is the question of if the planning commission member or a person related to, or this gets to the issue of I'm not related to an applicant, but my wife happens to be the daughter of the applicant.
I don't think right now we're working on changing these, Brian. Is that right? You're just putting them in here for us to mentally review.
Yep. That's what we've typically done at this first of the year meeting. And I think this was going to be a whole separate conversation if the rules of conduct wanted to be amended at some point.
That's fine, because
I think for amending the rules of conduct, that is something that we will do down the road. And I believe you had that meeting that you chaired a lengthy meeting with the attorney, specifically relating to rules of conduct, if I'm not mistaken.
We did.
And I don't know that there was ever any real formal response to that other than some OMA questions.
Didn't she, Greg?
She came back with the answers to his OMA questions, and they came back with bylaws, but I don't believe.
And the bylaws were in theory, I think, meant to incorporate.
I think that was the idea, because I know when we talked a couple of weeks ago, it came up in conversation that there had been an email from the attorney, and I went back through all my emails because I thought that was about the rules of conduct because it was in response to that meeting. But actually, that document only had the bylaws attached to it. The draft bylaws that we were working on, it didn't actually have any new draft rules of conduct. What did come out of it, though, was that the rules of conduct were acceptable, and then they included this extension piece. So that's that's what.
They were acceptable to that lawyer.
Right, right. They were, and the ex parte communications part of it was acceptable, and it listed a number of
yeah. I mean, the ex parte
townships or cities that use it
at all.
So
what bothers me is the conflict of interest.
Okay, well, that'll be something that the chairman can take up at a future meeting.
And I noticed the bylaws now say a conflict of interest as is described in the Planning Commission Rules of Conduct exhibit. The draft ones that are included in the packet. So they still foresee a different document, but it's an exhibit to the bylaws. I thought they were going to be included in the bylaws. But...
Right. I think we did change it so that it referenced them as an exhibit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so then we have the community planning principles on here, Brian.
Yeah, once again, those are something we've tried to just include here. It comes from the Michigan Society of Planning. So just a helpful thing to try to review, basic standard helpful planning principles that we ideally try to keep in mind here when reviewing
Make
site
some
plans and projects.
Make some good late night reading.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then we have the 2022 calendar. And then that would bring us to, well, gosh, that would bring us to old business. Article 13, we're just flying through this agenda. Somebody thought we were going to take a long time here. We're moving right along. Okay, and that would be bylaws, if I'm not mistaken. Bylaws discussion, which I think I'm going to allow our newly elected vice chairman, Mr. Moxley. Oh no, wait, that comes later. He had something for the end. My bad. So bylaws. We received the
Scott
draft.
Yeah, so these are the changes that we made at the last meeting that I've put in here, just kind of confirmation that we had everything.
Yep.
If there's any other additional comments, then I think it's what we were looking for.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that.
Brian?
Yep.
The blue includes all of the lawyer's changes as well as yours?
The lawyers haven't made any changes. These are all the changes that the Planning Commission made at the last meeting, and then I implemented into the document. So these are all ones that were discussed the last time we discussed
This
the
is
bylaws.
what we did.
Okay.
And what we changed, he wanted to make sure that it's correct before the legal counsel has a chance to look it over, correct? That's
I
the
believe
idea?
so, yeah.
So once we give it a second review here and then we send it on. So this should be exactly as we left it at our last meeting. And I read through it and nothing jumped out at me as I'll admit I read through it a little quick because I was crunched for time. But I didn't see anything that I thought was missed when I compared it to my notes. Does anybody have any concerns on the draft from what we had previously discussed?
The only thing that I can see is at the end where the signature is and the date.
Yes.
The year will obviously be changed to 2022.
Well, right. That's not going to work, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, I think they can.
And I only
handle
mention
that.
it because it was up at the top of, at the beginning of the bylaws, the 2022 is put in there,
Oh,
adopted on.
aren't you
Gives the date.
thorough?
Good eye.
Icky.
Very good eye. Very good eye. Okay, so that must be why she's the secretary. At the last page, we need to update the date to 2022. Any other concerns? I think we're looking pretty good. We'll wait for the powers that be to kind of give these a blessing before they come back in front of us for an approval. Member Merlin, you have your hand up. What's the comment?
It goes to the comment that created all the controversy in early December. Where appropriate, this is on page 8, where appropriate, the Planning Commission will make a good faith effort to respond to questions in a timely manner at its discretion. I would eliminate at its discretion.
I think we voted on that at that meeting.
I know. And I am just sensitive, obviously, to the inability of certain groups at the township to respond to citizen inquiries and issues.
Is that specific to the planning commission, or is that based on other experiences you've had with other?
I know the spot we're talking about, but where is this?
It's page 8.
Page 8.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at Article 8.
41.
Okay.
Article 5G.
Article 5G, the planning commission will generally not respond to public comments, but reserves the right in its sole discretion to make inquiries, correct errors, provide other information or deems appropriate. Where appropriate, the planning commission will make a good faith effort to respond to questions in a timely manner at its discretion.
We changed that part to the rest, and I think we did all vote on that at that meeting. So,
and discretion is already referenced in the first sentence, so it seems appropriate to keep it in the second.
And it seems to me that anything that enables the commission to say, we have had, with you as chair, I think the new chair could be much more rigid, but but with you as chair, there has been no issue with this at all in the planning commission. We get back to citizens when they raise issues. We may not respond at the meeting, and that's perfectly okay because it's public comment period, not necessarily public discussion period, as I was so told at the last session. But one of the keys to what some of you may not view as a problem, but I do, which is a rising level of distrust between the citizens and the township, is that the township fails to respond to citizen inquiries. And I don't want us to follow in the footsteps. Ben was saying that we should take the board's agenda, and this is in the board's agenda, as our model.
I think to clarify what I said was it should be consistent, not that we should use it as a model.
right. And I think we're rehashing minutes that we've already just approved,
Yeah,
which is, I'm not trying to be mean. It's somewhat frustrating because we've approved the minutes. The minutes specifically address this comment, what we talked about, that we voted on it, we agreed. It's not just about following suit with the board, like we're following what they're doing. It's there for a reason. There could be a situation where we shouldn't have to maybe get back to somebody. I think we make the best.
Okay, I agree with the way we had it. We had a vote on this and we all voted, but member Nordic, you had a comment.
And I appreciate what you're saying in terms of not redoing it. I just we do have the caveat where appropriate. If we have that, does that not give us a way out if it's not appropriate? Again, I'm not trying to rehash this, but at the same time, if it's something that is that meaningful to, I mean, we have the power to vote to amend it, but
I mean, as I read this, I see two discretions, one as appropriate, and it's like we're beating a dead horse. Try to potentially limit our need to respond to the citizens of this township.
I don't see this as limiting, but I guess I try to respond to things. So
yes, with you, it has not been a problem at all.
I wrote exactly what we talked about the last meeting, and I'll tell you exactly what it is because it's not exactly what this says. We decided on where appropriate, the planning commission will make a good faith effort to respond to questions in a timely manner at its discretion. And I think that this.
There's a comma.
You read it
make a difference.
pretty much
But no,
verbatim.
because are we talking about
The
G?
comma's there.
Yeah.
G.
It says will generally not respond to public comments.
That's the first sentence.
Oh.
And then the second one is.
I had everything taken out and changed.
Oh, so
to what
you
we-
had all of the
That was my
original print
notes.
struck from the document so that G just read
The first.
the highlighted
No,
part.
the highlighted part,
The,
which just
the
says,
blue.
yes,
So you're saying the first three lines would be removed essentially. So G would just read where appropriate, the planning commission will make a good faith effort to respond to questions.
yeah, so it
Time,
doesn't
manner, has
say
its
will
discretion.
generally
I'm
not
happy with that, yeah.
respond, because that is in a negative connotation, and I think at that meeting, we actually struck
Ah.
all of that except that last part,
You know, I think I could.
to
see-
turn it from the negative into more of a positive.
Well, that helps. That,
That's
I
what
mean, it
that
does
is
read a
why I
little
had
better that way.
Agreed with that.
Thoughts? Is everybody comfortable with going with,
I feel like that's what we voted on.
what
at the
member
last meeting.
Scarstage is saying?
Strike
Is
the
that
first
The shorter
sentence.
version.
Yeah, so we're gonna get rid of, the planning commission will generally not respond to public comments, but reserves the right in its sole discretion to make inquiries, correct factual errors, or provide any other information it deems necessary. That section would be struck, and G would read, where appropriate, the planning commission will make a good faith effort to respond to questions in a timely manner at its discretion, period.
I don't generally remember it that way because I think the first sentence does have other elements in regards to making inquiries, factual errors. I think it goes beyond just comments in responding to questions. But I could be wrong.
Well, I think,
It's hard to say that we will correct factual errors when people are speaking, because sometimes I think people do just want to say their, I mean,
they
it
do, and
doesn't
sometimes
happen
we don't know
here.
what the facts are at the
Facts are,
time we
right,
speak, but
right. I mean, I
um,
don't hear it much
if we
here,
do,
but I
we try to correct them,
hear them
but,
at the board meetings
Yeah.
where it's definitely, they're just speaking.
well,
Do we need a motion?
I don't know that we need a motion, we're just going over a draft, so. Are, is that the, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're all in support of making this correction. I'm seeing a lot of nods and some hesitations. Remember
I think
Rappin?
it needs, if we're gonna strike the first sentence, it seems like the second sentence needs a qualifier that it's in regards to public comments.
Well, I think this whole section is in regard to public comment, if I'm not mistaken.
It is, but the first sentence sets the context for the planning commission will generally not respond to public comments.
Would it be better if that first sentence just read, the planning commission reserves the right in its sole discretion to make inquiries, correct factual errors, provide any other information it deems appropriate? And then have that second sentence as well. So striking the, will generally not to respond to public comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would give the context that I'm looking for.
Say that again, Brian.
So it would read, the planning commission reserves the right in its sole discretion to make inquiries, correct factual errors, or provide any other information it deems appropriate. And then also have that last sentence.
That's fine.
I could go with that.
Can I reopen? Just, I found another typo in the minutes, but we can add to later, but
I actually found a couple as well. I didn't read my notes very well before I.
Wait, let's discuss that after this. We can put that towards the end of the agenda under any other business. Okay. Moving right along.
So we're good with that.
We're good with
reading of it?
that. Section G.
do we make,
Any
Wait a minute.
any other concerns with this? Yes, sir.
should that be a formal motion?
To correct the draft.
I don't know.
Can we do it all at once? Are there any other comments? Should we save it or do one by one?
No, I think we
I
do
think
it
we
all.
should get to the end before we do anything.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Anybody have, and moving right along, that was Article 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Article 7 looks good. Article 8 looks good. Article 9. And then we get down to Article 10. We reference the rules of conduct exhibit. And then we have Article 11 where we approve it. I mean, I'm good with this. I don't have any, I wish I remember my binder, but I forgot it. I don't have any, anything to add. I don't know that we really need a formal motion, but I'm willing to do that if that's what you guys want. Otherwise, I'm looking to staff here for their insight on this. I mean, it's just a draft. We're making some
I
changes.
don't know if we need one, but
Okay. So everybody comfortable moving on?
Yes.
In the minutes.
Okay, then that's what we'll do. All right, then that brings us to any other business. Okay, and I just heard that we might have some minutes that we need to update from Member Merlin and Member Deering. What minutes would you like to revisit?
I would like to, on page 11, December 6 minutes.
December 6. I'm getting there. Bear with me here. I can only scroll so fast. There's a speed limit on this mouse. Okay. And what
In the second line of the second paragraph, I think that's the second paragraph,
one that starts with Member Rappin?
starts with member Rappin. I
Second
think
line.
are a separate document needs another E.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Spirate document doesn't really read right, does it? Okay, I see that. Second line on page 11. Planning Commission bylaws are a separate document. Jessica, you making that note? Thank you. Okay, next.
Do you have any more? I've got a couple then, and I
Okay.
apologize
Okay,
for
no,
this.
no, don't apologize.
Okay.
You know, they're your
So-
minutes. We want to make sure they're right.
Right, page 5, second. Yes, yep, so page 5,
Mhm, mhm.
and it would be the second paragraph,
Okay,
and it would be the second line from the end of the paragraph that starts with not believe that 9 members can represent all major interests. It says member Corsange recommended striking the word all, and I believe I said that.
ah. So it should read Member Deering.
Yeah. And then the next paragraph, third line down. I'm wondering if there needs to be after nonfeasance, sorry, I'm not, it's not a comma. What's the?
What?
apostrophe.
Yep, thanks. Yeah, I don't think there needs to be an apostrophe after nonfeasance.
Right.
Strike the apostrophe.
Yep. And then I think in the, I noted that in the second set of minutes, that the word it should be changed to if.
Yes.
I think we talked about that in the second set of minutes, but it's actually in the first set of minutes.
That's what I'm hearing.
Well, hang on a minute. Okay, so that was it for the 6th. And then actually I did have a change in the minutes for the 14th.
And what's that?
It would be page 5.
Page 5.
Second paragraph.
Okay.
It says number 7, and I'm wondering if it should say recommendation 9.
Have a recommendation.
Well, it says recommendation 9 at the bottom of page 4.
Yep, but then it goes at the end of that paragraph at the top of the
I
page
think
5. It says the final recommendation and problem are to read as follows.
number 7.
So it should say recommendation 9 : need to coordinate KCRC soil erosion.
I seem to recall that we struck one of those and moved it to another number. I don't remember if it was 7 though. I know we talked about 5 and.
Yeah, because after 12, it goes to 8.
Mm-hmm.
So the numbering is
Okay,
off, I
so
think.
should it be recommendation 7 instead of number 7?
Well, we have recommendation 7 further up. Underneath number 6,
Oh, yeah.
after recommendation 6. So
And we have a number 5.
I don't know that we I don't know that we need, I don't know that we can accurately make that change. Am I wrong to say that? Because we had two sets of numbering going on. We had the original numbers and then our edited numbers. And I think all of us sitting here right now,
A lot of it got moved around.
exactly, we're not going to remember what reference was what without the document, the live document in front of us now.
We can go back to the recording and confirm that.
It made,
Yeah,
yeah,
because
just
there
give it
were
a
a
review
couple-
maybe.
But then there were a couple of places in these minutes that said they got moved to different sections. This
Right.
just didn't say that here.
And you know, it was a pretty brief meeting, so you should be able to find it fairly easy.
Quickly.
Yes, Member Merlin?
I would be in favor because this is where a lot of voices, I talk over other voices when at the meetings, and having participated in innumerable drafting meetings, there needs to be sort of one person who puts out whether we got it right at the meeting or not. I'm not sure people could really
Figure that out.
that determination.
Well, apparently we left a little bit to be.
So I would leave it to Secretary Deering to go back and try to decipher and come up with one numbering system.
Well, maybe you could connect with your staff member over there,
Okay,
sort out how you want to
Yep.
handle that.
we can talk after the meeting.
All right,
Thank you.
that works with me. Yes, Member Moxley.
They're going to talk in further detail about this, and I will be
We are.
sending out a new copy of the recommendations to all of you to look at tonight.
At the end of the meeting.
And
Okay.
hopefully the numbering is correct.
Okay,
Oh,
so it might not be an issue.
It might not be, so
Okay.
stay tuned. All right, as far as the meeting minutes and the adjustments that we just made, are there any others that you wish to include at this time for the December 6th or December 14th? And if not, do we want to have a motion to amend the minutes as discussed?
I would move.
Member Merlin,
Well, I
is that a
guess I'm
motion or
not-
discussion?
no, I was going to make a motion to approve them, but all the typographical errors I'm fine with.
Okay,
It's maybe we need to go and see what Mr. Moxley has in terms of his list of numbering systems.
well, his list of numbering system is not reflective of what happened. I mean, it's.
I think so in these minutes here, the numbers, so number 5, 6, 7, those are the resultant numbers. And then the recommendations are what came from the original document. So there was 12 recommendations in the original document, and then we ended up with 8.
You're correct.
that's what the
You are
numbers-
exactly
Consolidated,
correct. We
consolidated to
consolidated
8.
the 12 to 8,
Yep.
and that's how we ended up with the numbering the way we did. So the numbering is accurate here.
I believe so.
I believe it is, because I read the 8 numbers and reviewed them with staff. So would you agree with that comment?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I would suggest the minutes, a sentence put in the minutes to simply reflect that fact that was just raised.
Okay. So a sentence stating that the draft presented had 12 recommendations, and the planning commission result was 8 identified, 8 numbered phrases.
Yeah, that would work.
Okay, something along those lines.
Yeah.
All right.
If we
Jessica, do you think we
confused
can?
ourselves,
Do you think we can incorporate something like that? Okay. All right. Do we have a motion to make these changes to the minutes that we previously made changes to? I have a motion
I
by
will.
Member Rappin
Yes.
and support by Member Cornsich. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I have to say, it's the first time I think I have ever chaired a meeting where we have approved minutes and then approved them again later. So it's kind of exciting. All right. Any other business? Moving right along.
I do have one question.
Yes, Member Rappin.
And this is maybe for Brian. some time ago, I had attended a session through the American Planning Association that was downtown. Do you know if those events are still regularly scheduled? I found one on their website coming up in March, and wasn't sure if A, we were still members in Cascade Township, or B, if anybody would be interested. But that was a course that was really informative when I was starting out. If you haven't gone through that, it might be helpful.
Is that through the APA or the Michigan chapter?
I think it was APA.
I know the Michigan Association of Planning occasionally has classes and things like that as well. So that's something I can work on sharing with members if it's something that people would be interested in.
I attended with you.
I think so. It was at Eberhard Center.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to one there too, one time on site plan approvals. Yeah, usually the former planning director would bring those opportunities to our attention. And when you said that was coming up, I thought to myself, those are usually in March.
Yeah,
and then you said it was in March.
Maybe that's what
like,
made me think about it, but there is one coming up in March. So I guess
Okay.
my question specifically was if we are or still are members of the APA, and how we would go about getting registered if that was something.
And if we have a budget for it, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, I think we typically do. So I can look into that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Member Moxley has a revised version of what we were just talking about a few moments ago about these draft recommendations to be presented to the township. And the reason that they're coming in front of us again is because the township board did not want to hear them when we went to them last time, because they wanted a chance to read them and digest them before they were presented. That's what was said to me. And so then that opened the door for Member Moxley and I to sit down with Manager Swayze and get his opinion on these, and then bring them back to you guys again after we applied his comments before we bring them back to the township board. So this is what we hope will be a final draft, and I will let Member Moxley get into more detail about it.
Well, first of all, I changed the title on it to say preliminary recommendations. This is not final recommendations. And they're talking about possibly, I think sometime in June, we would make the final recommendations to the board. We were ready to present back in December, and they basically said they wanted to take it off the agenda because they did not have time to look at it. I don't think it even had been handed out at that point. It was added to the agenda that morning, I believe.
But they want to wait until June?
No, I think that
For the final.
Well,
For a final.
we're getting a little ahead of the, I know what you're saying, but I don't think they do because they weren't there. So let me see how I can elaborate on this, Ralph, and then we'll try to. Let's go at this a little differently. There were only, I believe, 2 of these that actually changed since we saw them, correct? 2 or 3?
Yes.
Okay, and and what are those 2? So we can just zoom in right on the meat of the document.
Well,
and then
first of all, number 9.
No. Let's go in order because of the way these minutes read.
Number 4.
Thank you. I just, after what we just went through, I don't want Member Nordyke to have to deal with that pressure in this chair. So number 4.
Any deviation from the original approved site plan needs to be approved before changes are started. The problem, in the case of Round Hill, the former planning director made minor changes as allowed in the PUD ordinance. Planning Commission feels many of these changes were not minor, with no written records of the changes found, and without the Board of Trustees or Planning Commission ever receiving notice of changes. This makes it more difficult for township officials to follow the PUD ordinance accurately. And then Manager Swayze said we really need, he feels that we should include what the zoning ordinance does say, and that's what I've added here to this. Says, quote, minor changes to a site plan may be approved in writing in advance by the planning director, providing the plan complies with all applicable requirements of this ordinance and all other township regulations or state law. The planning director may approve changes to a site plan for the following. Number one, change of location or type of landscape materials. 2, minor changes to an approved site plan, which involve the addition or relocation of any of the following items: sidewalk, refuse containers, lighting, driveway entrances, signage, retention or detention ponds. Number 3, decrease in building size from an approved site plan. Number 4, moving a proposed building on an approved site plan no more than 10 feet or 5% of the distance to the closest property line, whichever is smaller. Number 5, an increase in building size that does not exceed 5,000 square feet or 5% of the gross floor area. And number 6, new parking lots.
Okay.
All changes need to be recorded by the planning director. All changes should also be reviewed by the planning commission on a regular basis. If the builder proceeds with the change before approval is granted, the builder proceeds at their own risk.
So the reason this is written this way, these changes, what member Manager Swayze was getting at is the way we had wrote it. We said that any deviation from the original PUD ordinance needs to be approved before changes are started. And his response was that the PUD ordinance is law and we can't change it, and neither can staff unless a new one is voted upon. What does frequently get changed is the site plan that the PUD ordinance reflects if a minor change is made. So he wanted us to change the wording from the way we had it, where it reflected original PUD ordinance, to say original approved site plan, because the site plan is what staff is able to make the minor changes on, not the ordinance itself. You can't change the law just having one person as a staff member make that edit. So that was what that's how we got in this conversation. I'm not sure which one of you put your hand up first. So I don't know. I'm getting ways to both ends, but I'm going to go with Trustee Nordhook here because I've heard less from him tonight.
I have a problem with under minor changes, number 2, retention or detention ponds. There's nothing about those 2 items that are minor.
Agreed.
Well, that's the ordinance, though. That's
something that we need to work on because those are not minor changes.
Okay, but that's yeah. I mean,
But they're only talking about.
That's
just
reflecting
addition or
the segment
relocation.
of the ordinance. And so that's an ordinance change, which is something we can talk about, but I think that's separate from this particular document. But that's something that we can get into when we discuss this. Yes. Member Merlin?
I was going to raise that one because in Round Hill, where the ordinance did talk about wastewater, we never could determine what the site plan was. And I think if we allow the movement at all of the actual wastewater or detention pond, it can make a significant difference in an engineering sense. The other one, I think, in the same way, if we are talking about, I would argue, new parking lots can be material or not material, depending on.
Right, but again, that's just giving context to what it is we're discussing here, that we're not actually making a recommendation to change the ordinance right now, and that's what the ordinance states.
Yeah, but I think one of the recommendations of the Round Hill subcommittee was ultimately that we do in fact make some changes to the zoning ordinance, because the word minor, what was encompassed by minor is not always minor. If you can change a general condominium to a site condominium, and you change all the property lines and you move the pond somewhat, you push out the hillside so that the angle is steeper down toward the neighbors. Those are a lot of changes.
So could we simply add a line here that says better rules or definition of minor is needed?
That's what I think. I don't think the zoning ordinance definition of minor is compatible with what's happening in Cascade Township.
A review of the zoning ordinance
Yep.
definition of minor is needed.
I would be very happy with that. The other comment I would have is when it says all changes need to be recorded by the planning director, are you talking about legal recordation somewhere?
Me personally?
No, I'm not. I think somewhere the planning director needs to put it down in writing though, and then review it with the planning commission.
I agree with that. I just would stay away from the use of the word recorded, because there's a lot of, that gets confused with the legal concept of
What
recording.
word would you use there?
Shall be in writing and shall be reviewed with the planning commission.
What number is that?
So,
We're
I mean,
on
are we saying all
still number
changes need to
4.
be simply documented by the planning director, or do you want it to explicitly say they must be documented and shared?
They need to be documented in writing, because I think it currently says they need to be documented. And the problem was changes were made, but nobody could find those in writing. Now, they may very well be documented, but the person who took that knowledge with them. So
I recall the discussion was that they needed to be documented and retained for reference by anybody who sought that out, which I think went into discussion elsewhere about the process.
Yeah, I think documented and retained is great.
Instead of recorded.
Yes, instead of recorded. And the one that I would, did we start with number 4 for a reason?
yeah, because we didn't make any changes to the other ones since the last time we reviewed them. And that's what we reviewed. And we're just showing you the changes that were made from the staff meeting we had, not,
Okay.
so what's the other draft is what we had already drafted as a group. I mean,
But again, we had one of these hither and yon, back and forth, and Ralph just wrote it down at the end, and I certainly didn't have a chance to sit down and think about
you
them.
painstakingly typed it out
The
while we
whole
sat
time.
here
Yeah,
in real
And you
time.
read it to us.
Yes. Changes.
One comment I'd like to make, and I think Timmy would agree, and that is this item 5, an increase in building size that does not exceed 5,000 square feet or the gross floor area. Boy, that's not a minor change. That's major, especially in the case of the condominiums we were looking at.
And what is gross floor area, all of us?
Any
7.
little definition on 5,000 square feet.
But I think it's the smaller of the two is what's missing.
I was
because
just gonna say,
I
the
think
one
five
above
by
it doesn't
4
say.
says
It does
whichever
say
is
the
smaller.
smaller of the two. It says that, in fact, on the minutes, I
I think
believe.
the smaller of the 2 was in the,
Somewhere I read that.
I can find
Totally
it for
agree.
you. I
It
brought
couldn't
those.
double in size to 5,000 square feet, but I think the intent is the smaller part.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
Which
that's a
number is
very
that?
unusual
It's a number 4, right?
2 elements. 5,000 square feet or 5%.
I think 5% or 10%, 10% probably is more of a standard when we're
I read
talking
that
about
somewhere,
these
but I don't know where.
things that they can change. So I think to have it less being 5% is a good thing. And I don't know where these other numbers came in. Maybe they wanted something else to have it, whatever smaller. of it.
Well, I think the idea is that if you have a gigantic building, you don't want to allow them the ability to increase its size by 5%. So that's why you're limiting it to 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
I will add this note, whichever is smaller at the end of that sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that's how the ordinance is read.
Yes.
I can show you the ordinance because I brought it, but
Yeah.
Okay. Are we good with number 4? Moving right along.
Okay,
well,
number
whoa,
9.
whoa. Not quite, actually.
Oh, well.
What happens if the planning director allows a minor change under these definitions? He shares it with the planning commission and the planning commission says, whoa, by moving it that X% or whatever it may be, you have substantially, or you have materially changed something that is important in the overall design of this PUD or the overall development of this PUD.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we not have a standard similar to that which a reasonable builder, engineer, planning director would find of importance, not determinative, but importance in making a decision, or what the planning commission would view as important in making a decision to approve or not approve? That's what we're trying to do, is define what is material with a lot of very specific thingamajigs. And I don't know whether these are the right thingamajigs being a legal term, or that's what makes it difficult.
Member Rappin, you have your hand up?
I think we previously discussed the need to revisit what minor is, and I don't know if that encompasses what you're.
I agree. You're right. If we if we somehow put in all of these may change or whatever, that we need to revisit the whole definition of the whole concept of minor.
Well, I wrote down
We added
a
in.
review of the definition of minor is needed.
Okay.
In our original draft, we just talked about minor, and Ben looked at it and said, wait a minute, we need more definition. And that's when he suggested these 6 points, and I added them in.
Which I know when.
Right, because he wanted to reference the actual ordinance of what minor is.
Yeah, so there's some definition.
Right.
When we started, there was no definition. Of
Maybe that was to start this conversation. I don't know, but.
Yeah, it's in 1604, I think, of the zoning ordinances where we find minor defined.
Okay.
But.
Well, and I think that question came up during that meeting. I know it was one of the questions, was what is our minor changes?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So now they're just in there for reference.
Yeah.
And
Section
we recommend
2104.
Get addressed.
2104.
Okay.
2104.
I was
Then,
close.
then let's move on. Then the other change that came out of the meeting with Manager Swayze was we added a number 9. And I think that this is a good idea. But number 9, Member Moxley, I'll let you keep going. I don't want to steal your thunder.
Yeah, I asked Manager Swayze to send me an email of the language he wanted to see, and I basically inserted it here. Implementation plan, selected members of the Planning Commission and Township staff, parentheses, including the manager, planning director, and other staff members as needed, into parentheses, should work cooperatively to establish an implementation plan for the recommendations and provide the plan to the Township Board on or before June 30th, 2022 for their consideration.
And that's what the June.
That's the
where it
reference
came
to
from.
June.
So it came down from the manager. And as I see it, what we've got here is kind of a preliminary document. We review it with the staff in greater detail and then come back to you folks with recommended changes and then have a final plan that we can take to the board.
Is it clear?
I don't know if that is exactly how he was seeing it in this. I think he's seeing it as though there's going to be a committee formed and that committee will bring the final recommendations to the township board. I don't know that it goes from that committee to us and then back to the township board. I think his intent is that it goes from that committee to the township board. I could be
don't
wrong.
think consistent with the zoning ordinance and our responsibility for the zoning ordinance. I don't think the township manager can initiate changes to the zoning ordinance.
I don't know that that's what he's saying, though. I think what the suggestion is that they come up with an implementation plan that may
Right.
have assignments back to
He
him.
made the comment. He made the comment to Ralph and I numerous times that he had no objections to any of this, and that he and planning director Hilbrands had discussed some of these things already and had begun to work to implement some of these things already. So he did not have any objections to this. But I think what he wants to see is, I think I got the impression from him that by implementing it in this manner, we would get I think by
More of a buy-in from staff.
yes, we get more of a buy-in from staff and the board.
And my only comment is I have no problem with recommendation number 9 with 2 caveats. But I think that committee should bring it back to the planning commission because of our ability or the requirement for our review of zoning ordinance changes.
Well, we can make that request when we pitch this to the board, right?
Yeah.
I
I would agree. I think it should come back here.
I don't think it's a request.
Of course, did you ever get?
I just want clarification. So I'm slightly confused. Is this going to the board?
So
Let me just finish because now I'm a little confused. So this is going to them. They kind of say, oh yeah, this looks great. And then it comes back because to me, the Round Hill Investigation Committee, whatever it was called, gave us a report. We've went through it. It needs to go to the board for them to look at and to see what was discovered. And I feel slightly that it's been really picked apart a lot. When I feel the members, which I was not on that committee, but I feel like the members of that committee need to give us a report, which they did last time, which we all looked through and kind of cleaned it up a little to go to the board. I think it needs to go to the board. And then if they say, yep, this sounds like great changes, we do need to be making these, then it goes to number 9, where then it gets bought in, staff get their input, talked about what's happening to make changes to implement the plan. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Just want to make sure the assumption is still that we defined what the packet was that would include the minutes from last time with this report. And I would just say that I like item 9 because I felt last time we had something that didn't have any conclusion to it, like we were going to put it on a shelf, and this actually gives some.
I agree with you, and that's why I like that last number 9, but I just want to make sure we're doing things in an order where, okay, the Round Hill Subcommittee made recommendations. They came to us, we looked at them, we decided, yep, this is great. It needs to go to the board to know what happened and what was wrong. And then if they agree and say, yes, we do want to make some changes, I agree, whatever they want to say, give their blessing, then number 9 is, as I read it, an implementation plan. Yes, where then it goes back. There's more people are involved because it's their jobs.
I would just request that it also, that the process of making changes to the zoning ordinance be consistent with the statutes of the state of Michigan and our zoning ordinance, which I think requires a final approval here.
Yeah, any amendments to the zoning ordinance have to come from the planning commission, who makes a recommendation to the township board.
Okay, there we have it. I think I've got this wrote down. So
Can I ask, I've got one minor question. Hopefully it's minor.
I hope so.
I'm curious where the June 30th date came from. And do we think we're going to have a planning director in place by that time so that that person can participate?
I think that
Question for me.
Well, you drafted the document, Ralph, so that's why eyes are on you. I'm sorry.
First of all,
You provided the draft,
the
so
date came in that email from the manager,
thank you.
and I simply
Okay.
inserted it as he requested.
So there we have
So he wants it done by June 30th.
What are you now, Brian?
the interim planning director is my current title.
And there is a document that effects that,
Yes,
signed by
myself, and I think Manager Swayze as well.
who?
I believe Manager Swayze as well,
And he has the authority to appoint planning directors?
or at least interim planning directors.
Brian sure hope so.
As the chief administrative officer and not the chief executive officer of the township.
Could be.
That's my understanding. The plan, it was staff in consultation with the planning commission. Is that what you're getting at?
No, I just am getting at the issue that popped up in Round Hill because remember, we thought Steve Peterson was the planning director. That was denied in the response to Mr. Rohde's complaint.
Right, but what we're talking about is he's the interim.
I know.
Okay.
I then asked Mr. Swayze, and Mr. Swayze said he could appoint anybody anytime he wanted, which seemed just a tad glib, given the authority the planning director has. And I know one of the larger recommendations that I guess has been eliminated is that the Board of Trustees should have to approve the appointment of a planning director.
We talked about that in a different
number
document.
We did.
I was gonna say, that's
Oh, that is
something
here?
else.
Yeah, it says establish a selection and approval process for a new township planning director.
Okay,
This is consistent with the wording in the draft planning commission bylaws.
Right.
That's-
Ironically, when we went through the draft bylaws, Manager Swayze had made a comment on the language in here as well, because he agreed that we should have buy-in with that too. So
And we say the township board of trustees, in consultation with the planning commission, very important, is responsible for hiring a planning director.
then I'm happy with that.
That's what we added.
right.
Okay.
But I think when there's a vacancy, the manager has to act quickly to get an interim person in that seat. And I think that's what happened here. And then to find the permanent solution is where this works.
Well, I just would like to be able, if we are sued at any time, not us, township again. And one of the persons sued is in theory the planning director, that we be able to identify who that is.
Yeah. All right. Any other business?
Yeah, I want to go back to one.
One what? Article 1?
No, number 1 here of the recommendations.
Oh, what do you want to do that for?
I think it's not simply the PUD ordinance and mass ordinances and mass, just the typographical aspect, PUD ordinances and master deeds must be recorded.
Plural.
Plural. And then the second concept is there's also a stormwater plan that is adopted pursuant to our stormwater ordinance that, remember, was backdated in the Round Hill situation. That should also be recorded.
Stormwater.
Stormwater maintenance agreement, if I'm not
I think
mistaken.
that's
Is that
what
what it's called?
Yep.
Stormwater maintenance agreement.
I remember some discussion of this, and I only worry about limiting or
Mhm.
listing these documents so specifically because these aren't the only 3 important documents. And there could be additional like condo, I know we've talked about condo agreements and other things.
And I think that's where the number 9 comes in, the implementation plan, is that committee can pick this apart and figure out exactly which specific documents need to be included and how to word that.
So then maybe we simply want to say in the PUD, all documents required by the ordinance to be recorded. All documents must be recorded. All
a copy of the master deed and associated documents must be.
No, I think it would be the PUD ordinance and all documents required by that ordinance or by other regulations of the township must be recorded in accordance.
I think that we can leave it pretty broad because again, like you said, I think as long as it's broad enough, whether it be what you just said, I think that gives the idea of what it's meant to say is that all of the
required documents must be
recorded. Yeah.
That would be a better way to say it, all the required
documents.
documents.
And then the implementation plan will figure out exactly.
But all
it's like a document's essential to like planning or that we're just everything.
Required documents such as the stormwater maintenance agreement.
Should be mentioned.
Should be mentioned, yes.
I can
that
mention
forms
that.
the basis of our ability to enforce.
No, I'm looking for things to say when we present this, so.
So I think Brian was
gives me
saying all required documents and then maybe such as PUD ordinances, master deeds, stormwater.
Okay.
And we also okay, no building permit and no work can be started. Let me ask this commission a question. Would the clear cutting of a site, taking out all its trees and leaving it a flat dirt surface, would that be viewed as work?
I think the problem with that is that if I own 5 acres of land and I decide I want to cut down all my trees, I have the right to do that as an individual property owner. But if the guy across the street on his 5 acres goes and gets a PUD,
right,
and you're very specific here, and now all of a sudden you've made it so that I'm allowed to cut my trees down, but he's not allowed to cut his down without an additional approval. I don't know that.
I think that's entirely appropriate because his PUD is a planned unit development, which has an element of.
It is, but I think we might be getting a little micromanaging a little bit.
Well, the classic problem here at Round Hill is that he clear cut the property.
Caused all kinds of erosion problems.
Well, I understand that he had erosion problems and that is because he was ignorant and didn't do anything to solve it. He didn't even plant grass for 2 years.
He didn't build the retaining walls for 4.
No, you're right. But those were developer issues. I don't know that.
Didn't we have the same problem? What were the problems we had with Mr. Cleary?
Well, I don't want to. I don't want to go back through all this right now. I think we're getting a little maybe too descriptive. If we start going through every one of these and adding more to it, I think the idea here is that we'll have a group that will be able to add to it.
Then we should, as our recommendation, say important terms such as construction must be defined.
We're still on 1, I think.
Okay, so this is for number 1.
To provide clarity, yes. And what constitutes a
provide clarity on the definition of construction
and other terms important to the protection of adjoining landowners.
I'm just going to point out that we did add that last sentence to include specifically tree cutting. The only exception will be surveys, soil testing, or other work that does not permanently change or impact the site.
We did.
And I think we argued that clear cutting would permanently change the site.
I think you're right here. You are correct.
I'm going to make a comment related, or Ralph, one of us will, so that the township board understands where we're coming from with this. That's why I'm writing this down.
Because in Round Hill, there were 2 sort of weaknesses in the ordinance. One was the retaining walls were never really put into a stormwater facilities definition, and construction was never defined.
No, I understand. So I've made note of that. So we can address that, right? You can do that. We'll bring that up. I believe, I think the way this is going is that Ralph and myself are going to present this. And then that way we'll have a member, trustee Nordhook will be sitting here as well. And if we get off track, he can throw something at us or chime in, and he can help answer questions. He can help answer questions, you know, all the questions we'll just direct directly to him. And then we can work through this. Is that reasonable? Okay, I get the thumbs up. I think we're good. Rubber stamped it, as they say. Okay, so then moving right along. Any other last minute suggestions before we move on to the next item of our agenda? Which is any other business? Any other business? Yes, Member Moxley.
Well, I brought along the board that I think I mentioned to several of you previously. All is given to me by planning director.
Well, you gotta hold it up for the camera. You gotta hold it so the camera can see it. You know. There we go. Thank you.
Right there. This is 30 by 42. I use this frequently to see where the different PUDs are. They're all listed right here. I also find many different road locations, some of which I'm not really familiar with. So when I go out and set inspections, I can drive to the right spot. I've heard it asked repeatedly that new members have no idea where some of these PUDs are or some of the other locations, and can they get a map of the PUDs in the Cascade Township? And so I'd like to, I actually talked to Manager Swayze about this very issue when we had our meeting. And I said, and I showed the board, and I said, would the township be willing to support providing one of these to each planning commission member? And he said, absolutely. So he supports it. I guess we can either do it as something mounted on a board like this. I wouldn't do it this size. I do like a 24 by 36. This is 30 by 42. And even in my house, it's kind of hard to find a closet where I can put this. The other option is just laminate it. Then you can roll it up and pull it out when you want it, you know, and tack it to a wall or whatever you want to do. So I'm open to your comments, and if you all want something like this, we'll make arrangements to acquire that.
Looking for a show of hands, but yes,
I like that size, like you said, laminated, rolled up. I like the size because I can read it, but yet it can roll up and be tucked away somewhere. So that would be what I would prefer personally.
So you would prefer a rolled version,
like a laminated that size. Yes.
Same. Okay.
Yeah.
Same.
This size?
Yeah.
The 30 by 42,
yes.
The big guy.
So I can see.
So I see 4 members to my left, 5, 6. Okay, so pretty much everybody here requests that size document laminated and rolled up. Mm-hmm. All right.
And one for whoever the new person might be.
Well, we do have an empty chair currently occupied by a map. Yeah. So member map would like one as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might as well.
One in reserve.
Right.
Yes.
It'll be a little gift.
We need 9 of them. We would request 9 of these.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. Can you bring that request to said experts in the field?
Yes.
Thank you.
I shall.
All right.
I think, Brian, you were going to get the latest plan from Fishbeck.
Yeah, we'd send out the PDF of it, but we can work on getting printed ones.
Okay.
Laminated,
printed.
They need to be laminated. I don't know if I can get a roll of contact paper.
I know. I was like,
even gonna try.
no, I tried. It wasn't pretty.
All right. Any other business? Yes, member Nordike.
Okay, as we go into next year, if anybody has anything that's outside of the typical cases that Brian's going to put on, please send myself an email, and I just want to make sure that we're getting to everything that everybody on this commission wants to cover. So
And I know you're the chairman, but I was thinking of something too, that I do think that if there's something ahead of time that we have either a question or comment or concern or question for staff, I do think out of respect that if it's something you have before the meeting, that it would be fair just to at least send a message to them for time wise so we can move on. So maybe they could have time ahead of the meeting to be able to get an answer to those questions. So then instead of just presenting a question here and asking staff, a lot of the questions we ask, at least for me, a lot of them I think about, some of them are spur of the moment, but some of them are before the meeting. So I just think out of respect for staff and for timeliness of moving meetings along, it would be nice to just shoot maybe, hey, Brian, I got these 3 questions we can talk about at the meeting. It's not ex parte, it's just letting him know so he can be prepared.
Absolutely. I don't see anything wrong with that.
And I found that Brian's been great in responding to the questions I have for him.
But we have to ask those only, we do have to ask those really only to Brian and copy only Brian on those.
Right.
Just so that
They
he
should
can,
be,
yeah.
Staff questions.
Sure. And then he can come prepared.
Okay.
Is there any word on getting township email addresses?
I haven't heard anything from Ben since you'd emailed him last.
Ben and I had many emails back and forth.
Yeah.
And he's working on it.
It's a very complicated answer that's quite a long, lengthy. So we'll just take the, he's working.
Got it.
We're going to the cloud.
Yep.
Oh, we were doing that last year.
We were, and it's a process. And once we are in the cloud, we will get email addresses.
It's the winter season, so there are lots of clouds around.
Yeah. I did try to bring you into that email.
I did, and then I had been in meetings all morning, and by the time I caught up, he had said he was going to look into something. So I was waiting for a response and didn't hear the response. So I'm asking the question again. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Follow up.
Just as a matter of interest, is Ben's issue with that in part because we do not have sufficient IT support?
It's a function of Exchange licenses that we have, our Office 365 licenses. The township has a finite amount and they don't want to purchase more, only not to use them when they move. That is my understanding.
If they're going to make that change right away, it doesn't make sense to spend the money to end 3 or 4 months, throw that license away to move to, a different, say, cloud-based system.
And they are moving away from 365.
I think, in fact, they are going to 365 from their server.
I think they're Exchange on-prem right now.
Yeah, I think there's some issue with number of licenses, Craig. Like he kept throwing different things at me and I finally said, all right, whatever, just get it to us as soon as you move to the cloud.
It sounds like they don't currently have enough licenses for 9 additional, or I guess it'd really be 7 additional email addresses. And so by waiting a little bit, it financially makes sense to just pause briefly. And I don't think the intent wasn't for it to take this long, but I don't think, I guess I kind of get the feeling that maybe
I was pretty persistent.
You were, yeah.
As you all saw in my responses for you. So
that's where that's at. Any other business? All right, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Support.
And again, I would like to thank Chairman Rizzi for his service as chairman over the last year.
Well, thank you. I would be happy to chair a meeting anytime. I say that hesitantly because you never know who's going to be here, but I'm willing to do it anytime. So it's been my pleasure. And with that, do we have a vote to adjourn?
You have to call the vote.
Oh yeah, they do, don't I? Well, that I just did. Let's vote to adjourn. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.